Hello and welcome to France 24's interview. Our guest today is a globetrotter of international football. He used to play for the Bayern Munich, the Girondins de Bordeaux. He then coached Bordeaux, Nice, and Ajaccio, as well as Nantes in France, then Tunisia, and later on Gabon, Niger, and Burkina Faso. And now he's at the helm of an African football giant, Nigeria. Says you may have guessed, our guest today is Gernot Rohr. Gernot Rohr, hello.
Hello.
You've accepted our invitation to this interview. We thank you for that. Now, as I said in my introduction, you are now managing a team that is an African football giant and is increasingly important on the international stage, including in the World Cup.
Yeah, it's true. It's a major team. But back in 2015, we were going through quite a tough time because the team had to go through major changes. A number of the players were nearing retirement, so we had to replace them with a lot of young players and make a new team. In fact, some of those players were very young. And then I took on my role in August 2015. And it was really lucky because we won one of our very first matches against Tanzania. They'd been kicked out of the African Cup for the second time running. So when I came in, we had to kind of boost morale. And we had to build a team that worked well together, that had very much team-orientated.
And it was a beautiful qualifying campaign in a pool that was considered as a difficult group with Zambia, Algeria, as well as the defending champion for Africa, Cameroon. And if you look at the scores on paper, it looked as this was easy, but was it as easy on the pitch?
You know, when I signed on, people said, we need to qualify for the World Cup. That means coming first in a very challenging group with three other teams that had already been on to the World Cup level in Brazil. So we're talking about Algeria, Cameroon, and Zambia, who were former African champions. So the first match we won against Zambia, and we felt like we were on the right track. We had a few hurdles after that. Algeria, Cameroon, who had in the meantime become African champions with a fantastic team. But we were able to push through without losing a single match. For some, it was quite a surprise. But when you look at the history of our team, well, I think you can say that we deserved that win because we're a winning, fighting team and we work well together.
That's right. In fact, as you yourself had just said, some were asking a lot of questions about Nigeria at the beginning of the playoffs because it was a very young team that was only just beginning to rebuild. So what made it possible for the group to gel, for the team to gel as quickly as it ended up doing?
You know, I was very used to working with young players when I worked in Bordeaux. Karil Zarzo, Zidane. So this experience helped me deal with this new team. And I think you can see the results when you start with wins in the very first few matches. It makes it actually hard because, sure, you win a tough match, but it builds confidence, and you need that confidence and you need that enthusiasm to carry the team forward. And when you have a young team, you need to be careful. You need to be careful that they remain grounded, that they don't get carried away by enthusiasm. But then on the flip side, sometimes they can doubt themselves very quickly and they can be inconsistent. But what I would like to say is that we've been very lucky because the guys I've been playing with have always been able to think about their game. After an away game with Algeria, we won. It was very well done. But we came in with a new mindset which enabled us to win. Then after that, we had two games against the Cameroon, who in the meantime had become African champions. The first home game, 4-0, we won. And we played in quite an interesting way in that match there. And then we had a 0-0 match against Cameroon. after that. And then we also have the friendly match against Argentina. For the Nigerians, it became a clear message that we were going to really do well at the World Cup.
Well, yeah, we'll come back to that, Argentina, because Argentina is one of your rivals in a group that is not the group of death, because there's no group of death this time around, but it's still a tough group with Croatia, Iceland, and Argentina. So how confident are you about this group and these next games?
The first match is a key match against Croatia because they have a fantastic midfield and they have a number of players that play in some of the major teams around the world. Then we have Iceland. We saw them in France, European champions. They kicked the United Kingdom out of the team. And they've got a whole nation supporting them. Then the third match against Argentina. We don't really know what happened in the first two matches because that will infect us in that third match. So hopefully it will be able to build confidence within our team, but we need to stay wary.
Well, as you just said, you defeated them. Well, that team was the most feared team probably for the Nigerians because it's a team against which Nigeria has often lost in pool games, and so a team that Nigeria finds hard to navigate for obvious reasons. So what helped Nigeria make the difference that time?
I think the conditions of the match were very important because there was the first match that they won against Russia. They had Messi in the team then. And then Algeria went to head to Krasnodar for the match there. And were very focused on that match. And they didn't have Messi because maybe they left him in the plane. But what we saw was that the first half, we struggled. Luckily, we were able to score a goal just on the 45th minute mark. And then coming out of the change rooms, we scored 2 goals straight away. And it really showed just how the young players, they can really go above and beyond. And they can come into their own. And that's really why we won. We ended up with the score 4-2. What was very clear is that they won't underestimate us from now on.
So is this the kind of match that you will use to coach and advise those young players? What are you going to be relying on?
We're going to look at some of the benchmark matches. One match is, for instance, the one we had against Cameroon, where we won 4-0. And it's a benchmark match because it was a match that we had against a major world team. They didn't have, there was no Messi, but we didn't have Victor Monzes. But those 4 goals, they were clean goals. So it's trust and it's confidence that we're building there. So we can see that our players are good players, but what we can also see is that the first half is often a bad half for us. So what we need to ensure is that we can have a consistent match all throughout the 90 minutes, so that when we hit the World Cup, we can really stand up against Croatia, Iceland, and Argentina.
Indeed, many former players, including Liberia's president, George Weah, the former African Golden Ball winner, saw Nigeria going very far in this competition. So when you hear those statements, are you pleased or is it cause for trepidation?
Well, I won't lie. It is always good to hear such positive feedback. But it's also quite dangerous because it really gets in the minds of the players, and if they start to think that they're better than they actually are, then it can have a negative effect on their games. And when you look at the makeup of my team, there's no George Weah, there's no Jeje Okocha, there's no Kanu, there's no Victor Ikpepa. What we don't have are those key players that can really make a difference on their own. We are very much a team that works together. We don't have any one player that stands out above the rest. So we're a young team that works together, and this is a huge strength for us, but we don't have those key players that some other teams have, the sort of player that can really make the difference.
We do have a few players. You cited a number of them. Victor Moses, for example, you compared his absence to Messi's absence. So that's great. And in fact, at last, Victor Moses is now up to the expectations that the world of football had for him. He's risen to a new dimension. Is he one of your leaders leaders in the changing room?
Yes, I would say he is, because of his past with Chelsea and also the performances that he's had with us against the Cameroon. It was fantastic. So it's someone who plays a defensive role, and that's what he played when he was against Chelsea. But then, when he came to our team, he played more of an attack position. But on top of that, when he was with Conte, he played right back. But with us, he's always played as an attack position. And really, I would say that he's a leader of our team.
He's got many qualities, but which one makes him a major player?
Speed and his dribble. They're fantastic. But also his behavior, the attitude that he has when he's on the pitch. He's a very generous player. He's a fighter. From a technical point of view, he's perfect. But on top of that, he really inspires a lot of the young players around him.
So what would a great World Cup be for Nigeria?
World Cup would be to get out of the group, to really have a fantastic attitude with the whole young team, to show them that they can really push themselves without putting too much pressure on them, that they can really have fun, that they can have joy while they're playing. And really, I want them to ensure that at the end of it all, they won't regret anything. So there are 52 countries in the World Cup. There's 14, 8, and then 4. So to come win second, it's already an exploit in itself. But what we can say is that Nigeria has a good team, but now we just have to prove it during the World Cup. They already did it back in the quarterfinals 4 years ago. And we'd like to do that in the World Cup, and if we can do that, it's already a success in itself.
Great. Well, we'll be following all of that very closely, particularly at France 24, because we'll be present throughout the contest. Thank you, Gernot Rohr, for accepting our invitation.
Thank you very much. I always watch France 24 wherever I am. Thank you.
Well, we're honored. See you soon. Bye.